Welcome everybody to the inaugural episode of a new program called Montana Shares. And I'm Becky Bramborg. I am a friend of Shares, and it's my honor today to interview the future host of the program Montana Shares, their director, Bill Crane. So Bill, welcome and thanks for starting a new show on HCTV.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you came on board as a seasoned expert to get me started on this whole process.
I just have a good time doing this because the people that come on the show are consistently doing wonderful things, and you're absolutely on that A-list. So tell us, before we talk about the program, remind everybody, and in case somebody hasn't become familiar with it, isn't in the know about Montana Shares, give us like the 10,000-foot bird's eye view.
Montana Shares, our goal is to make giving easy, which is kind of a vague concept, but over the last 27 years, we've raised over $5 million for 120 different nonprofits around the state.
So you facilitate the donor's ability to give in a way they might not otherwise be able to. Is that right?
That's a great way to look at it. One of our primary tools is using workplace giving.
Neat.
And payroll contribution.
So for people who are not familiar with that, I mean, it's pretty commonplace in a lot of work sites, but never happened in a lot of others. Tell us how that works.
Right. For the places that have it set up, it's a super easy way to give. Payroll contribution, a lot of people say it's gone before you notice it. In the fall, you pick where you want your money to go, how much you want to come out of each of your paychecks, and then your payroll sets that up and money comes out of the paychecks. It gets sent to us on probably either a monthly or quarterly basis.
Great.
And then we send it out to the member groups on a quarterly basis as well.
Nice.
And so you have this super easy thing where you decide once a year, you give throughout the year, and it adds up to a significant contribution at the end of the year.
That we might otherwise not be able to make because it's incremental and small each time. It's no big deal.
Yeah, normally the end of year giving is when people think about giving, and it's Christmas time, the holidays, and it's often challenging to be writing a check at that time of year. And so this is a super easy way to give. We call it ESP, easy, simple, and painless way to give throughout the entire year by just having a little bit come out of your checks.
So what kind of organizations do people give to?
Oh man, we have the whole spectrum of the human condition, as I say.
That's great. I saw a lot of the logos and names of the organizations in the opening credits.
Right. I mean, just sort of, I like to think of it as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a little bit sophisticated, but at the core level, you've got food, shelter, water, and we've got groups like the Montana Food Bank Network and Great Falls Community Food Bank that serve the food needs, obviously. And then at a slightly higher level, we've got groups like Arrow, which is the Alternative Energy Resources Organization. And their job is to create sustainable communities and sustainable agriculture. So they deal with food at a slightly higher level. We have groups like the Helen Area Habitat for Humanity that provide shelter, and NeighborWorks Montana is another one that a lot of people don't know about, but its job is to help people get into home ownership. Over the last few years, it's getting better now, but over the last few years, they've focused a ton of energy on foreclosures and preventing foreclosures.
Yeah, and home buyer education.
Yeah, so the great areas that they serve. So that's food, that's shelter, water.
Well, and I'm already noticing on that list that some are very local in one community and some are statewide in their work and influence. Is that correct? Is that kind of the array?
That's very much the case. We have the statewide groups that are doing sort of systemic work and change work and justice work.
Like Disability Rights Montana.
Right. We have a volunteer here in the studio today with Disability Rights Montana helping out here. They work with people with disabilities and try to make sure that they get the justice they deserve in our society. Something
interesting going on in this studio this very minute is that you have two of the organizations who are recipients of people's gifts via their workplace giving, operating the cameras.
Right. Our groups help us out a lot.
Isn't that super? I just love that.
Yeah, we've got Carrie with Last Chance Community Powwow and Steve with Disability Rights Montana helping out today.
That's super. That's a nice new wrinkle. I love it. So you want to tell us more about these groups?
Sure, let's just
oh my God.
keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, there are 40 member groups, and so it's worth kind of looking at the whole spectrum of them. There's the, water. We had Montana Watershed Coordination Council, one of the ones that's more challenging for me to say. But then moving up into some of those higher level things, we've got groups like the Holter Museum of Art and Queen City Ballet that work on making our community better through the arts. I have to go to my cheat sheet every
Well,
so
of course,
often
with
here.
40 groups.
They have cultural groups, just like we mentioned, Last Chance Community Powwow. And in Butte, there's the Meiwa Museum, which is this fun, scrappy little museum that's preserving the Chinese cultural heritage down in Butte.
Neat.
And then you've got these, another higher level of groups that, like we said, work on social justice, Montana Legal Services Association. And then sort of the unique thing about it is we've talked about all these things that affect mankind, humans and stuff. We have the similar type of groups that serve the animals in the state. And so here in town, one of the obvious ones is Lewis and Clark Humane Society. And
A very popular recipient, I understand, of your donors.
the most popular recipient of funds. And in Bozeman, we have Heart of the Valley. And in Missoula, there's one called Animeals. They serve two functions. They are a shelter, but they also have the kind of really unique aspect to them, which is they're a food bank for pet food. And so they help out all the people around the state that help various breeds of animals and stuff like that have bigger challenges getting food for their pets that they're trying to help out.
So for that, so that food goes, I don't mean to go too deep on any one of these, but the food goes to, and Animeals, people and like shelters? Or rescuers, or?
More to the degree like rescuers, like Greyhound Rescue Group or a specific breed, and then I don't know exactly everything they do.
Yeah.
They also work with the food banks to have pet food in the food banks.
Oh, good point, because I know a lot
Lots
of
of
food
people
banks include that in their array of giving.
Right. And then, you can, again, moving up the needs scale, you've got the groups that work with animals like Montana Trout Unlimited and Montana Audubon, Montana Wildlife Federation,
Wow.
Montana Wilderness Association, that deal with sort of those bigger environmental habitat type of
Yes,
issues that we deal with.
nice, nice.
So we've got this whole spectrum that deals with the human condition. We have the whole spectrum that deals with the animals and the environment.
Which are a major part of our lives in Montana, so that makes sense.
Everyone has pets and loves the outdoors, I
Yeah,
hope.
yeah, that's great, that's great. How many years has this been going on?
Like I said, 27 years it's been going on.
Nice. And is this part of a national movement that people give in this way via their payroll deduction?
Yes, it is. There's something called Community Shares USA, which is the national group that sort of bring all of the community shares from various states together. We just got back from a conference back in May in Chicago. And so it's
a growing trend, would you say, or is it?
I don't know, it's fairly
healthy.
static.
It's
It's
healthy.
healthy, without
Okay.
a doubt. Millions of dollars are being raised across the country
Neat.
for shares organizations, without a doubt.
Nice, nice, that's great.
Let me check really quick, see if I missed anyone really.
You
I'll
bet.
obviously miss people. There's health groups. Coleman,
health
Montana
groups,
is
of
another
course.
one like that. Let's see here. There's got to be a few others that I've missed. Reproductive health, like Bridger Care down in Bozeman, does lots of work in that regard. And then the Cancer Support Community and Can't Make a Dream is a new group that joined us this year.
Nice.
And so there's those
A lot of
types
people are
groups.
familiar with Can't Make a Dream, that's great.
Exactly.
So when a donor is sitting and looking at probably a list that looks like that in the fall of each year, do they get to choose specific organizations? Do they choose by subject matter? Can they give just in a blanket way to everybody? What are their options?
We really promote donor choice, so it's important. Whatever's important to you and your family is often what most people choose to do, is give through donor choice. But we also do, in fact, have what you just described, for that blanket concept, which is what we call our undesignated option. I often joke that if you just look at the list and you say, gosh, all these people are doing really great work and I'm overwhelmed, I want to give, just spread it out.
Yeah.
And so we have that undesignated option that all of our
Great.
groups can receive those funds based on how they participate
Right.
with volunteer opportunities like these guys are doing today.
Good, good. Tell us what you have in mind for your TV show.
Oh, yeah.
Montana Shares.
Montana Shares. I mean, it's unique and it's a sentence in 2 words. But really what I'm after is to
It
give
needs a
people,
period after it then.
yeah, we could add a period, I suppose, is to give people a better in-depth view of what these organizations do. I mean, on one hand, just to use the Humane Society as example, they help 2,500 dogs and cats a year.
Nice.
And if you just leave it at the 25-word description that we see in our brochures and in the workplace giving options, either electronically and stuff, we live and die sort of by 25 words, but it really doesn't do justice to what an organization does. I've gone out to the Humane Society during the daytime when they're actually closed, but there's a full staff, and there's all these volunteers, and they're doing stuff. They're stuffing peanut butter in Kongs, or they're writing grants, and there's all this work that I want to get.
Exercising.
Oh yeah, walking
everybody.
pets and cleaning up after them.
Not to mention.
And so, yeah. So you've got this depth to groups that is far bigger than 25 words.
Isn't that so? So the purpose of the show is to. So do you envision like one or two per program, or one a program, or?
Oh, I think we're probably just going to be doing one a program.
Because there's so much to say about each of these organizations.
Every group can go into a lot of depth
Absolutely.
and see what.
That's
let
great.
the public really know what they do or what a day in the life of looks like.
Super. And when will it start?
It's going to, well, it's obviously starting today.
Da, 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 da.
And then we'll move on into July and take it from there.
Great.
And that some of our groups have specific events that they want to have their sort of a combination event and in-depth type of thing going on, so we'll schedule those type of things. But
So sometimes you'll be talking about a special event coming up in their lives
Right.
that they want people to know about. Excellent. And will it be weekly or another format?
I think we'll probably shoot for twice a month as initially,
Okay.
just because I committed to this without having a clue what's really involved. I'm like, I want people to know about our groups and what we
Yeah.
do for our groups. And I want to acknowledge the people that donate, because I mean, really we serve the donors. We make it easy to give, and payroll deduction is one of those ways, but there's other ways: online giving, monthly giving with credit cards, e-checks, all those types of things.
So we end up talking frequently when we talk about shares about the organizations, where the money goes from
Right.
people. But it's really because of the donors. And your philosophy is reminding us that it's a donor-driven, donor-inspired, donor everything program and activity. So that makes a ton of sense.
Exactly.
It's a service to them to have this show on to talk about where the money goes.
Exactly.
Is that what you're thinking?
You've got, $5 million doesn't show up out of thin air. It shows
Right.
up because people give. And it's so much of that in the world of nonprofits, you're often looking at grants and all these things. These are coming in $2, $3, $5, $10 a month every paycheck,
Yes.
whatever the deal is. And so it's individual philanthropy, and everyone gets to be a philanthropist. And
Great.
And so really it is all about making it easy for people to give. There's that helper's high that people get from giving.
Yeah.
And you get to give it every 2 weeks. You can look at your pay stub and say, oh, I
Helper's
gave this.
high.
Yeah, it's
The
like legalized drugs.
the satisfaction we derive from making those contributions.
Exactly. Helping other
Nice.
people, making contributions, helping organizations is the helper's high. It's
Nice.
a great thing.
It's a great thing. Are there any events or anything going on that you want us to know about for shares or even member organizations on the list?
Well, none come to mind for the member organizations.
Okay.
It's the great time of year for shares where it's a little slower because we get into campaign season in a couple of months. And this is the time of year where we make our new brochures, get a newsletter out. What do we want to do to make shares better? Those types of activities that are really fun for not being in a rush.
So one of those things you can do when you're not in a rush is people who are listening, who maybe have control or are managers of businesses or nonprofits who want to make this kind of payroll deduction giving possible for their employees and themselves, they could arrange that so that when the fall campaign rolls around, they're ready.
Exactly.
And I bet that's a big part of what you're doing this summer is making that invitation loud and clear.
Exactly. We have, that's really the third area that we serve. We serve the donors, we serve our member groups. Then the third area is we serve employers. One line
Yes.
item on a paycheck is a single deduction for Montana Shares can go to 40 different member groups. So it gives your employees 40 choices. And they can
Nice.
also do write-ins as well.
To any organization
To
in the
any
world?
nonprofit in the world.
And then you pass it to them.
We send it out on.
Great.
The members get them quarterly, and then the write-ins are typically once or twice a year, depending on how much.
Sure.
But it is the time that we work with the employers and offer that service to the employers, because we have this vast spectrum of employers where on sort of a dozen people at some place like Pioneer Technical, or the sort of
State.
medium-sized stuff, the
Yeah.
city of Helena, the city of Missoula, the counties, the school districts. Valley Bank is a real strong campaign here in Helena.
You have several banks, don't you?
Several banks involved.
Opportunity Bank,
Opportunity Bank
Yeah.
and
First
First
Interstate.
Interstate with
Great.
its
So you have all
acquisition
the
of Mountain West
biggies,
Bank.
yeah.
The big ones. And then we move into My favorite one, the one you've worked with for a long time, is the State Employees Charitable Giving Campaign.
Yeah.
Is an amazing campaign. This is the people that are often taken for granted that keep our roads fixed and keep, everyone doing the agriculture that they do and protecting the wildlife and all this stuff that all these great state employees do and often
Right.
overlooked for doing.
Right.
And so they do this great job every day of the year, but then secondarily, they're extremely generous people.
Anybody who ever has kind of a negative thought or perception about state employees is about to change their minds when you tell them about how much they donate.
Right.
It's remarkable.
It's remarkable. I believe the average donation is couple $100
yeah.
a year as an average,
For
for
each
each employee
employee.
that gives.
Yeah.
And the whole campaign raises about $500,000 a
Isn't
year
that
that goes
amazing?
to. In that case, it's bigger and broader than just Montana Shares.
It's all over
all
the
the
state,
nonprofits
yeah.
across the entire state. I think
Yeah.
there's about 400 and some nonprofits, but $500,000 is raised by the state employees across the
Themselves,
state.
yeah.
Not just Helena, but Missoula, Great Falls, Bozeman, the whole
So
spectrum.
there's that third leg to the Montana Shares stool, is that the State Employees Charitable Giving Campaign is and other employers are arranged for and everything's squared away for the coming fall's effort and campaign. That's great.
Exactly.
So where do people call if I'm the manager of a something or other, of a nursery or a store or a small business or of any kind or a nonprofit? Should I call you folks directly?
You bet. Our phone number is 406-442-2218. www.montanashares.org.
Is it a big
Montana
deal to
spelled
get?
out.
Is it a big deal to get signed up?
It's really easy. You just basically, as a business, you make a commitment to do it. And the first time that you've done it, your employees will turn in a slip. It actually looks like this type of slip that has their name and how much they want coming out of a paycheck. And you set that up in their payroll record in whatever accounting software you use, typically QuickBooks. And then it just comes out of the checks automatically when you
Nice.
write paychecks.
And your
then-
accountant or the accountant for the business or the owner or whoever does the books would be able to do that pretty readily.
I consider
Easily.
it to be quite easy. It's one
Yeah.
liability account in their chart of accounts
And they already are doing deductions for typically other things, so it's no big deal. It's
health
just-
insurance, those
yeah.
type of things. It's the same
Exactly.
type of thing.
Right.
So it's really easy for an
Piece of
employer to
cake.
set up. It's a great service to their employees, helps those employees give really easily.
So say your ESP again.
Easy, simple, and painless.
I love it. I love it.
We try to we use that ESP at all different levels.
Tell us what else has ESP.
Well, I mean, for an employee, ESP is simple because the one line item is 40 different member groups that your employees can give to. As a donor, it's ESP. You pick your groups that you want to give to in the fall. It just automatically comes out of your check. You never even
Beautiful.
notice it going out of your checks. And then on the flip side of that whole thing is, as a member group, we try to make it easy, simple, and painless to be a member group. You don't have access to most of these workplaces if you're not part of a federation like Montana Shares. And so we put you into all those different workplace giving campaigns. And the other thing that's it's hard to describe, but here's my analogy. In the summertime, I do a winter analogy version of this when I'm doing workplace giving, but the summertime is, an individual raindrop doesn't mean a lot.
Right.
But
To
as
a
more and
crop,
more of them
for
come
instance.
together,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you've got, a good rain that's healthy for a crop, and if it gets really crazy, then you've got flooding and all that kind of stuff that can, change the face of the earth. Well, workplace giving and these small donations is the same type of thing. These $5 and $10 and $2 donations every paycheck are sort of these little raindrops. And if you were sending a check, a $2 check to an organization, it would almost be troublesome in a way. They'd be writing out these super long deposit slips. And our job, when we're used to this, when we have computerized systems for all this, is we collect all these raindrops from all these different people in all these different workplaces, and we keep aggregating that all together. And then on this quarterly basis, we send those out to the nonprofit organizations, and they get a more meaningful check of a few $1,000s as opposed to $100 $2 checks.
And as I recall, it's something they come to count on and can budget because it's so consistent.
It's fairly consistent, so they can put it in their budget,
Yeah.
and they know exactly which months they get their checks. And so that's that last step of easy, simple, and painless for the
Everybody
member
on the
groups.
list.
Yeah.
Congratulations on having a new show.
Thank
I know
you
it's
so
going to be
much.
fun, and the organizations and the whole community are going to all love it. Bill Crane, Executive Director of Montana Shares, launching the new program on HCTV called Montana Shares.